Chapter 2504. Young Lord, we have already understood your experience in the Battle of Zhuolu. This time, Bailey Hongzhuang is indeed a strong opponent. However, since things have already come to this, we hope that you will not lose your fighting spirit. Victory and defeat are common in war. The second elder slowly said. He was originally a member of Lan Jingquang's faction, so he had always supported Lan Qingyan. Now that he had taken the lead to say these words, the other elders would not say much about this matter. Thank you, elders, for your understanding. I was too impulsive before. I will definitely not do this again. Please rest assured. Listening to Lan Qingyan's words, all the elders nodded their heads. This was how a young lord should behave. Young lord, regarding this matter, what plans do you have for the future? Lan Borong asked. In fact, he had always hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang was really Lan Yishuan. Even though he had only met Bailey Hongzhuang once, from his understanding of the situation, Bailey Hongzhuang was definitely more suitable than Lan Qingyan to be the patriarch. In fact, Lan Hongtai had long wanted to not care about the matters of the clan. However, Lan Qingyan was still not mature enough. He could not rest assured that the Lan clan would be handed over to Lan Qingyan. Taking advantage of the previous effort, he had already sent out trustworthy people to inquire about Bailey Hongzhuang. He only hoped that the final result would not disappoint them. Hearing Lan Borong's words, Lan Qingyan could not help but look at Lan Jingquang. The first elder had always been an upright and plain-spoken person. He was different from the second elder, who was completely on their side. The first elder was the patriarch's man. If she did not answer these questions properly, it would not be long before the news reached the ears of the patriarch. This was not good news. Lan Jingquang gave Lan Qingyan a look. Only then did Lan Qingyan speak. I will work harder in my cultivation. The next time I see Bailey Hongzhuang, I will definitely not let such a thing happen again. First elder, now that things have come to this, the young master already knows where the problem lies. In my opinion, there's no need for us to be tangled up in this matter. The second elder looked at Lan Borong. This time, Lan Qingyan had indeed made a big mistake. However, he could not allow the first elder to harp on this issue. Lan Borong naturally knew what the second elder was thinking. When Lan Jingquang did those crazy things, the second elder was the first to stand up for Lan Jingquang. All these years, he and the second elder were at odds with each other on the surface. But now that Lan Yunxiao's family was no longer here, there was no need for a conflict between him and second elder. Indeed, our Lan clan is a clan that can accept failure. As long as we can snatch back our results in the next battle for deer chasing, that's good enough. In the next moment, Lan Jingquang couldn't help but glance at the second elder. The second elder immediately stood up. This time, the young master's poor performance in the battle for deer chasing was due to an unexpected situation. However, everyone has seen the young master's usual performance. Her strength is absolutely unquestionable. Moreover, this time, the young master was injured for the sake of the clan's ranking. We should quickly take out pills to help the young master recover. Long ago, Lan Jingquang had already communicated with the second elder. Now, the most important thing was to treat Lan Qingyan's injuries. Chapter 2505. That's right. In another 3 months, the Divine Ice Snow Pond will open. Young Lord must quickly recover from her injuries, so that she can better absorb the energy of the Divine Ice Snow Pond. Regarding this, the elders did not have any objections. Even though this pill was extremely precious, the person who needed it was the young lord. Naturally, there was no problem. On this point, Lan Borong also agreed. Young lord, this time you encountered the Primal Chaos Tablet in the Battle of Zhuolu. Did you gain anything? Lan Borong's eyes were wise and calm. This was something that the family head was extremely concerned about. If the Rainbow God Pearl could improve through the power of the Primal Chaos Tablet, then it would be a joyous matter. Even if the results of the Battle of Zhuolu were not good, as long as they gained something, it would be enough. Following Lan Borong's words, the other elders' gazes all landed on Lan Qingyan. This news was something that they were also very concerned about. The connection between the Rainbow God Pearl and the Primal Chaos Tablet was something that had been passed down in the family. It was just that this primal chaos tablet was in the Battle of Zhuolu and would not appear every time. This time, they were all looking forward to Lan Qingyan's Rainbow God Pearl being improved because of this primal chaos tablet. Lan Jingquang's expression also changed a little. For so many years, Lan Qingyan had been using the power of the Rainbow God Pearl very well. The thing that they were worried about did not happen. It was as if this was also arranged by the heavens. Lan Qingyan's body did not reject it at all. It was as if it was naturally in her body. He believed that this time would not be an exception. After hearing the questions of the elders, Lan Qingyan was also shocked. She did not tell anyone about this. Why did the elders seem like they already knew about it? I discovered that this primal chaos tablet is very close to the Rainbow God Pearl. Because of this, I was able to comprehend it. Lan Qingyan smiled faintly. Hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the elders were first happy, but then they were puzzled. Young lord, what did you comprehend? I've comprehended the primal chaos tablet's contents, and improved by 2 steps. However, that Bewitching and Mo Yunjua's talents are truly perverted. I'm slightly lacking compared to them. Lan Qingyan was not willing to mention Bailey Hongzhuang at all. From her point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was absolutely lucky. Otherwise, how could she have such results? Is there no change to the Rainbow Divine Pearl? Lan Jingquang frowned. According to their understanding, the owner of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl could enter the source world and increase the power of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl by a level. But according to Lan Qingyan's answer, it seemed that such a thing did not happen. Lan Qingyan looked at the second elder in confusion. She did not understand what the second elder meant. It was just comprehending the primal chaos tablet. What did it have to do with the Rainbow God bead? The two were completely different things. Even if the Rainbow Divine Pearl helped her speed up her comprehension, it was impossible to change the Rainbow Divine Pearl. Thinking of this, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head. No. Hearing Lan Qingyan's words, the originally expectant crowd couldn't help but reveal a disappointed expression. Previously, they were incomparably anticipating that there would be a change. Then, their Lan family would definitely rise to another level under Lan Qingyan's leadership. They did not expect that there would be no movement at all. Chapter 2506. Logically speaking, the information passed down by the ancestors should not be wrong. Why did it not have any effect? Some of the elders could not help but suspect that Lan Qingyan's Rainbow Sacred Pearl did not truly belong to her. Perhaps in the past, they did not feel that there was any problem after Lan Qingyan absorbed the Rainbow Sacred Pearl. It was as if she was the true successor of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl. However, the truth was that the Rainbow Sacred Pearl had changed. It was likely that the Rainbow Sacred Pearl would no longer be able to improve after being taken away. It was just that they did not voice this guess out loud. After all, at this point, Lan Yixuan no longer existed. There was no point in mentioning this matter anymore. Lan Jingquang and the second elder's expression also changed. This was not a situation they wanted to see. They also had the same guess in their minds, but they were unwilling to believe it. Lan Qingyan had obtained the Rainbow Sacred Pearl for so many years, and there had never been any problems. Instead, she was like the previous owners of the Rainbow Sacred Pearl in the Lan family. Her cultivation speed was very fast, and her battle strength was much stronger than cultivators of the same level. Chapter 2507. However, in the current situation, if they were to mention this matter, it would definitely cause a lot of opposition. Moreover, Lan Qingyan's previous evasion had already caused a lot of elders to be dissatisfied. Lan Qingyan's performance over the years was not bad, so everyone was quite supportive. However, many of the elders had the Lan family's interests as their starting point, and did not blindly support Lan Qingyan. Now that Lan Qingyan's performance was obviously not mature enough, their plan had to be pushed back. Lan Jingquang nodded. This matter was really not handled properly by Qingyan. Now is indeed not a good time to mention this matter. It's better to wait for the impact of this matter to subside before mentioning it. It's good that Master Kuang understands. Mentioning it at this time will definitely cause a lot of criticism. It's better to wait until the young lord breaks through to the Purple Realm. Second elder sighed. This time, Lan Qingyan's performance was really too disappointing. Even though he had always supported Lan Jingquang and Lan Qingyan, after seeing such a result, he could only sigh. It was really too shameful. Now that this news had just spread, the impact would be even greater after a few days. Because not only was Lan Qingyan forced to kowtow and apologize in the Battle of Zhuolu, she even offended a few big forces. After the other forces knew about this matter, they would definitely think carefully. In short, this trouble was really not small. As the young lord, it was extremely unwise to cause a conflict to this extent. Most importantly, now all the elders already knew the reason. From the beginning to the end, it was Lan Qingyan who stirred up trouble first. However, in the end, she went for wool and came back shorn. Not only did this not cause the slightest bit of sympathy or anger, on the contrary, they only felt that Lan Qingyan was too stupid. As the young lord, she should know that before she had enough strength to defeat the opponent, she could only endure silently. However, Lan Qingyan just had to do something that she should not have done. It was really helpless. The second elder left after saying those words. He was really disappointed. Lan Jingquang looked at second elder's back as he left. The deep look in his eyes became even more intense. Lan Qingyan's performance this time was really disappointing. Even he did not expect it. This was simply the most shameful thing that Lan Qingyan had done since becoming the young lord. There was another point that the second elder did not mention. That was Lan Qingyan had actually destroyed the relationship between them and the Ouyang clan. The disciples of the family did not hide anything about what had happened, so everyone knew about it clearly. Come to think of it, the Ouyang clan must have already known the whole story. If they wanted to mend their relationship, they would have to pay a certain price. It was really troublesome. The Lan family's performance this time had already caused many forces to have a clearer view of them. In addition, they had made a few opponents. If they lost an ally at this time, it would be incomparably embarrassing. After Lan Qingyan returned to the house, she kept waiting for Lan Jingquang to return. She really didn't understand what the elders' expressions meant. Qingyan, what did the elders say after you went to the assembly hall? Yu Manlan looked at Lan Qingyan with concern and asked. Lan Qingyan frowned. After I apologize, what else can they say? However, mother, do you know what is the relationship between the Rainbow God Pearl and the Primal Chaos Tablet? I don't know. Chapter 2508. Seeing Yu Manlan's clueless appearance, Lan Qingyan felt even more vexed. As Lan Jingquang's wife, Yu Manlan didn't have the slightest understanding of Lan Jingquang's thoughts. It had been like this for so many years. She was truly speechless. As a woman, she didn't have any tricks up her sleeves. She was simply too incompetent. Qingyan, tell mother the exact situation. Yu Manlan couldn't hide the anxiety and concern in her eyes. Ever since Lan Qingyan and Lan Jingquang left, she was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Yet, she didn't know what had happened. Now that Lan Qingyan was back, she naturally wanted to know what had happened. Lan Qingyan impatiently waved her hand. Don't bother me. What's the use of telling you? Anyway, no matter what she said to her mother, it wouldn't be of any use. It was just a waste of time. After so many years, she had long since gotten used to it, and the little bit of patience she had left had long since been exhausted. Seeing Lan Qingyan's annoyed and impatient appearance, Yu Manlan felt a wave of sadness in her heart. She didn't know when it started, but Lan Qingyan had always treated her like this. It was as if she was an insignificant existence in this family. No one took her seriously. Outsiders might think that she was very impressive, but the Lan family members knew that she didn't have any status at all. This was something she had slowly come to realize over the years. It was because of this that she was even more jealous of Mu Lingbing. Even though Mu Lingbing had been tortured beyond recognition in the dungeon, Lan Yunxiao had always treated her the same way. That kind of doting and heartache couldn't be faked. With just a glance and a sentence, this kind of affection had been displayed incisively and vividly. Back then, she had put in so much effort to do all this for Lan Jingquang and Lan Qingyan. However, in the end, she had become an existence that was despised by them. She really could not understand why this was so. So, all these years, she had tried her best to show off in front of Mu Lingbing, wanting to show off her outstanding qualities. Unfortunately, only she knew the weakness and envy in her heart. Perhaps, she would rather suffer as long as the man by her side could always dote on her. God was just so unfair. She had done everything she could, but she still couldn't get what she wanted. Lan Qingyan was too lazy to pay attention to Yu Manlan. She turned around and walked into the house. Only when Lan Jingquang returned would she get the answer she wanted. Not long after Lan Jingquang returned, Yu Manlan was just about to ask when she saw Lan Jingquang's extremely gloomy face. She didn't dare to say anything else. Every time Lan Jingquang showed this kind of expression, she knew that something bad was going to happen. If she angered Lan Jingquang at this time, it would not end well. Lan Jingquang didn't even look at Yu Manlan, and immediately walked into Lan Qingyan's room. The door to the room had already been smashed into smithereens. When Lan Jingquang walked in, he saw Lan Qingyan calmly drinking tea. He looked as if everything had already passed. He was so carefree that he didn't know how serious his mistake was. Chapter 2509. Looking at Lan Qingyan's nonchalant attitude, the anger in Lan Jingquang's heart intensified. He reached out and slapped Lan Qingyan's face. Slap. This slap was louder than the previous one. Lan Qingyan's face swelled up in a short period of time. Seeing this, Lan Qingyan looked at Lan Jingquang in a daze. She didn't understand why Lan Jingquang hit her. Wasn't everything already settled? All the elders didn't say anything. Why did Lan Jingquang still hit her? Without waiting for Lan Qingyan to ask, Lan Jingquang's roar had already rung out. Do you know how big of a mistake you've made? You've always been proud of yourself and thought that you're amazing. The Lan family has never had such a bad result in the battle for supremacy. Not only did you not gain anything, you even offended several forces. You even strained your relationship with the Ouyang family. You've caused so much damage to the family. If you don't have the ability, then stay put. You went to find trouble with others. In the end, not only did you lose your own face, but you also lost the entire family's face. Lan Qingyan was stunned by Lan Jingquang's roar. She couldn't regain her senses for a moment. Her face was burning and her brain was buzzing. After hearing Lan Jingquang's words, Yu Manlan's face turned ugly. She didn't expect things to be this bad. Didn't we already know? The elders didn't say anything. Lan Qingyan couldn't help but feel guilty when she spoke. She understood that this matter was indeed terrible. However, for the Lan family, this wasn't a mistake that they couldn't bear. Didn't say anything? Seeing that Lan Qingyan was still unrepentant, Lan Jingquang's anger came out of nowhere. Originally, I wanted to use this opportunity to make you the true clan head. Now everything has been ruined by you. Even the elders who were originally drawn over to support you now have some opinions. The second elder is also disappointed in you. Do you know how much I've done to stabilize this all these years? It's all because of your stupidity. Now everything has to be rearranged. Do you really think that you're amazing just because you have the rainbow pearl? That was snatched. It's not something you can have. Don't the others know about this? Do you really think you're an unparalleled genius? Lan Jingquang's words were like a sharp knife piercing Lan Qingyan's heart. Lan Qingyan was completely dumbfounded. Even though Lan Jingquang had beaten her and scolded her before, he had never spoken to her in such a serious manner. She had always felt that she was the destined successor of the Lan family, and everyone else's light was overshadowed by her. However, after hearing Lan Jingquang's words, she finally understood that everything was under Lan Jingquang's control. She hadn't realized this until now. Yu Manlan covered her mouth to prevent herself from crying out in surprise. She hadn't seen Lan Jingquang so furious in a long time. This time, Lan Qingyan really crossed Lan Jingquang's bottom line. Lan Qingyan looked at the raging Lan Jingquang and didn't dare to say another word. She was afraid that Lan Jingquang would slap her again. Chapter 2510. All these years, Lan Qingyan knew that Lan Jingquang had suppressed the other outstanding children in the family to help her stabilize her position. However, she believed that it was because of her own strength that all the elders supported her. After all, she was the owner of the Rainbow Pearl. Everyone who had the rainbow pearl had a pivotal position in the Lan family. Because of this, she never took it to heart. Moreover, her usual performance in the family was indeed good. So Lan Jingquang never told her about it. Until now, when she heard Lan Jingquang's angry rebuke, she finally understood that she had been thinking too highly of herself all these years. The atmosphere instantly froze. Lan Qingyan's gaze towards Lan Jingquang was filled with fear. Once Lan Jingquang got angry, he was extremely terrifying. Even though Lan Qingyan was usually arrogant, she didn't dare to be impudent in front of Lan Jingquang. Just from Lan Jingquang's actions towards Lan Yunxiao, she could tell that he wasn't a kind person. On the contrary, he was very frightening. Yu Manlan also stood outside the room, not daring to move. All these years, her position had been precarious. She clearly knew that Lan Jingquang didn't have her in his heart. Back then, Lan Jingquang treated her well simply because he wanted to marry her and gain the backing of the Yu family. After this backing was secured, Lan Jingquang didn't care about her anymore. This was also the biggest pain in Yu Manlan's life. In the past, she was too stupid and thought that Lan Jingquang truly liked her. She even thought that no one was happier than her. But in the end, she was just a chess piece. Now that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were dead, she was no longer useful as a chess piece. If she wasn't careful, she could be abandoned at any time. This was something she couldn't accept. Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan coldly. You better perform well during this period of time. Don't make any more mistakes. You have to go and apologize to the Ouyang clan. Not everyone will help you clean up the mess you created. His cold words didn't contain the slightest bit of emotion, only endless coldness and command. Lan Jingquang's deep, dark eyes were engulfed in a terrifying storm. In the past, Lan Qingyan wasn't as reckless as she was now, so he didn't say too much. But now, Lan Qingyan felt too good about herself. It was as if everything was already hers, and she couldn't run away. However, he knew very well that because of Lan Qingyan's character, many elders were slightly worried. Strength was one of the reasons to become the patriarch. But as the patriarch weighed the pros and cons, character was equally important. With Lan Qingyan's personality, Lan Jingquang, Lan Jingquang, Lan Jingquang, 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 Jingquang. Lan Hongtai, that old man, was obviously determined not to hand over the patriarch's position to him. But he didn't care. As long as Lan Qingyan became the patriarch, what was the difference between him and the patriarch? He just couldn't understand how he couldn't compare to Lan Yunxiao. But Lan Hongtai only had Lan Yunxiao in his heart. Chapter 25:11. He hated it. At that time, he was also high-spirited, and the things he did were also praised by the family. However, that old man Lan Hongtai only saw Lan Yunxiao's achievements and didn't see his hard work. He was the eldest son. What's more, Lan Hongtai had already announced Lan Yunxiao as the next family head so early, and didn't even consider him. What was laughable was that Lan Hongtai actually hoped that he could help Lan Yunxiao and become his right-hand man. Why? He was the one who should be the next family head. Lan Yunxiao was just a stumbling block. That damned old man couldn't forget Lan Yunxiao, even after so many years. He was simply too hateful. What part of him couldn't compare to that dead person? Strength? He was stronger. Wife status? The Yu family was still the Lan family's ally. Most importantly, the rainbow pearl had also successfully merged into Lan Qingyan's body. In his opinion, this was clearly arranged by the heavens. If the heavens didn't feel that it was unfair for him, how could they arrange everything so cleverly? Fusing with the seven-colored divine pearl was not a simple matter. Unfortunately, Lan Qingyan had succeeded in fusing with it, which determined the outcome. Lan Qingyan looked at the terrifying Lan Jingquang in front of her, and could only nod slightly, afraid that she had done something wrong to provoke Lan Jingquang's fury. After Lan Jingquang vented his anger, his mood calmed down a bit. Things had already reached this stage, so there was no point in being angry. He had to think of a way to make up for all of this. He still needed to visit the various elders before he could settle all of these matters. Fortunately, although Lan Qingyan's actions were overboard, it didn't arouse everyone's opposition. After Lan Qingyan saw that Lan Jingquang wasn't so angry, she was relieved. Father, what is the relationship between the Primal Chaos Tablet and the Rainbow Pearl? After thinking for a moment, Lan Qingyan still mustered up her courage to ask. She really wanted to know why the elders were so disappointed when they found out that her Rainbow Pearl didn't change. However, other than Lan Jingquang, no one else could give her an answer. Lan Jingquang coldly glanced at Lan Qingyan. Lan Qingyan only thought that she had asked a question that she shouldn't have asked. Her heart was filled with apprehension when Lan Jingquang's reply rang out. According to the news passed down by the ancestors, if the owner of the Rainbow God Pearl is able to enter the origin world of the Primal Chaos Tablet, then the Rainbow God Pearl's power will increase. Therefore, all the elders have high hopes for your participation in the Battle of Zhuelu. They especially hope that the seven-colored God Pearl can change. If that was the case, then no one would be able to shake your position. Unfortunately, you didn't. Hearing this, Lan Qingyan finally understood, but her feelings were somewhat complicated. I only felt that the Primal Chaos Tablet was somewhat close to the Rainbow God Pearl, but I didn't discover the source world at all. Lan Qingyan frowned. Why is that? Could it be that the information passed down by our ancestors is inaccurate? Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's self-righteous appearance and glanced at her, saying, If I'm not wrong, it should be because you're not the chosen successor of the Rainbow God Pearl, so you can't enter the Primal Chaos Tablet's origin world. Chapter 25:12. However, Lan Jingquang's answer was like a sharp knife stabbing into Lan Qingyan's heart, causing her to bleed profusely. She never thought that it would be such an answer. All these years, she had been fusing well with the Rainbow Pearl, and there had been no problems. Most of the time, she felt that she was the one chosen by the Rainbow Pearl. Only when people mentioned her dead sister would she feel a trace of jealousy, even if it was a dead person. Because the Rainbow Pearl chose Lan Yixuan, and not her Lan Qingyan. This was an unjustified feeling. Even if the Rainbow Pearl was already hers, it was still an extremely unpleasant feeling. She didn't understand why the Rainbow Pearl chose Lan Yixuan and not her. She was still outstanding enough. Could it be that she couldn't compare to Lan Yixuan? In this short period of time, Lan Qingyan's mind was filled with thousands of thoughts. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. In the end, there was only one thought left: anger. Since Lan Jingquang thought of the answer to this question, the other elders must have also understood the problem. In this way, didn't this mean that everyone would think that she, Lan Qingyan, was unjustified as the successor of the Rainbow Pearl? For a moment, an indescribable feeling of humiliation spread in her heart. This feeling made her feel like she was about to collapse, but she was powerless to refute, because it really wasn't hers to begin with. After Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyan's defeated expression, he didn't say anything. Instead, he turned around and left. He felt that compared to Lan Qingyan's self-righteousness in the past, it was a good choice to recognize her own worth earlier. Otherwise, if things continued to develop like this, Lan Qingyan would really have no hope. Lan Qingyan was immersed in her own thoughts, and didn't even notice Lan Jingquang's departure. All along, she had been living with pride. Since young, no one could overshadow her brilliance. She had long been used to it. However, Lan Jingquang's words today were too big of a blow to her, so she couldn't recover for a while. Yu Manlan saw that Lan Qingyan was in a daze by herself, and couldn't help but walk over. She said with concern, Qingyan, your father said this because he was too angry. Don't take it to heart. Only then did Lan Qingyan regain her senses, but her expression was extremely ugly. Don't keep it in mind? How could they not remember it? Now all the elders must be thinking that I am a fake, that I am not legitimate. That is why I am unable to get the Primal Chaos Tablet's recognition. Lan Yixuan had already been dead for so many years, but grandfather still remembered her. This is all because of you and father's incompetence, but now you're putting all the pressure on me. Lan Qingyan felt a burst of anger. Just thinking about all this, she felt that she would not be able to go out and meet people for a while. After saying all this, Lan Qingyan covered herself with the quilt, unwilling to say anything else. Yu Manlan looked at Lan Qingyan's appearance and felt helpless. Indeed, she was useless. If she was useful, she wouldn't be living like this for the rest of her life. Unfortunately, he had already walked down this path, and there was no way to change it. Chapter 25:13. Lan Qingyan buried her head in the quilt, wanting to forget everything. Unfortunately, she couldn't do it. She couldn't help but hate Bailey Hongzhuang even more. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang affecting her performance in the Battle of Zhuolu, she wouldn't have fallen into such a passive situation after returning to the clan. These 2 slaps were all because of Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang's sabotage, she would have been able to successfully sit on the Lan clan's clan head seat. In this way, no one would be able to shake her position. Why would she need to apologize to the various elders? On the contrary, it should be that group of old fellows who would listen to her orders. The resentment in Lan Qingyan's eyes gradually deepened. Since everything was ruined now, she would definitely take revenge on Bailey Hongzhuang after 3 months. She wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to die. What Limitless Palace's young palace lord? Bailey Hongzhuang caused her to fail to sit on the clan head seat. Then she would make sure that Bailey Hongzhuang also had no chance to sit on the Limitless Palace's palace lord seat. Relying on Bewitching's favor, she became undisciplined and out of control. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang died, she wouldn't be able to obtain anything. Lan Qingyan's mind was constantly thinking about how to make Bailey Hongzhuang suffer a painful death. In order to vent her anger, she had to ask her grandaunt for some extremely cruel poisons. Once her grandaunt's poison was activated, she knew very well how terrifying it was. This was because many of the people she disliked had died in her hands like this. This time, she had to ask her grandaunt for the most vicious poison. Only then could she truly vent her anger. Just as Lan Qingyan was thinking about this, Lan Qingyan suddenly felt a faint pain coming from her body. After realizing this, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but frown. Why was her body suddenly in pain? She was only injured on her arm. However, gradually the pain became more and more intense. Lan Qingyan didn't dare to ignore it, and immediately shouted for Yu Manlan, who was outside the room. "Mother!" After hearing Lan Qingyan's call, Yu Manlan walked into the room. She originally thought that Lan Qingyan wanted her to help with something again. She didn't expect to see Lan Qingyan lying on the bed with a painful expression. Seeing this, Yu Manlan also became anxious. "Qingyan, what's wrong with you?" "I don't know." Lan Qingyan clenched her teeth and cried out in pain. "My body hurts so much. Quickly help me call a doctor and an alchemist." Hearing this, Yu Manlan quickly nodded. "I'll go right away. I'll be back soon." Yu Manlan didn't dare to delay, and immediately ran out. Lan Qingyan's complexion had already turned deathly pale. She felt that every cell in her body was transmitting the feeling of pain. The heart-wrenching pain was everywhere. She had never felt such unbearable pain before. Even when her arm was broken, there was only a sharp pain, and this pain would gradually lessen. However, the pain that came from her body was like countless insects drilling into her body. It was so painful that she couldn't hide it. It was as if her body was riddled with holes. Following this pain, she found that her broken arm that was originally no longer in pain began to hurt again. Not only that, the wound on her broken arm that had already healed began to bleed again. Chapter 25:14. Under such a situation where she felt like she was being bitten by hundreds of insects, Lan Qingyan couldn't help but think of the pill that Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her. Ever since she had consumed it, she had not felt any discomfort, so she had gradually ignored it. She thought that it was the pill that Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her in order to scare her and threaten her. After all, when Bailey Hongzhuang had drugged her, the strength of their 2 teams were equally matched. Logically speaking, if Bailey Hongzhuang had fed her poison, then Bailey Hongzhuang should have threatened her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had never mentioned this matter, as if this pill had no effect at all. She also thought that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't need to threaten her anymore, after she had the backing of Tiangang sect and Shitian Pavilion. However, she couldn't think of any other reason for the sudden burst of pain in her body other than that pill. Damn Bailey Hongzhuang. Lan Qingyan gritted her teeth, hating that she couldn't transfer all this pain to Bailey Hongzhuang. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a sanctimonious appearance, would actually poison her. The next time she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she would definitely give her a taste of her own medicine. The poison that her grandaunt had concocted was the best in the entire Xingxian continent. Bailey Hongzhuang's poison couldn't be compared to it. Although she was in great pain at the moment, Lan Qingyan wasn't too worried. The Yu clan was a famous medical family in the entire Xingxian continent. Wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang showing off her slight skill in front of an expert by poisoning her? It wouldn't take long for her poison to be cured, and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't get what she wanted. Yu Manlong quickly found a doctor and an alchemist. At the same time, this matter had alarmed the entire Lan clan. Lan Qingyan had just returned to the clan today. The previous disturbance hadn't passed yet, but now another matter had happened. It was very suspicious. Quickly take a look, what's wrong with Qingyan? Yu Manlan's face was filled with anxiety. She had never seen Lan Qingyan reveal such a painful expression. When the Lan clan's doctor and alchemist came in and saw Lan Qingyan's pale face and bleeding wounds, they were shocked. Originally, on the way here, many people were still guessing that Lan Qingyan had caused such a ruckus in order to get the clan to treat her arm as soon as possible. But now, after seeing Lan Qingyan's condition clearly, they understood that it was not an act. Lan Qingyan struggled to turn her body. Under this kind of pain, her strength had been completely exhausted in a short period of time. The doctor quickly took Lan Qingyan's pulse, but after taking her pulse, the doctor couldn't help but frown. Lan Qingyan's her pulse was calm, as if there was no problem. However, Lan Qingyan was in so much pain right now. What was this situation? Quickly help me stop the pain. I can't take this anymore, she shouted. This kind of pain could make a person collapse. She only wanted to calm this pain quickly. Hearing this, the doctor quickly nodded and immediately used a method to help Lan Qingyan reduce her pain. However, the doctor's method was useless because Lan Qingyan still looked like she was in incomparable pain. Chapter 25:15. The doctor was startled by Lan Qingyan's sudden roar. His complexion became extremely unsightly. Young master, I've already used my medical skills to reduce your pain. Is there any effect? Lan Qingyan frowned and rebuked angrily. If there is an effect, why am I in so much pain? This doctor was simply a good-for-nothing. Seeing this, the doctor's eyes flashed with doubt. Logically speaking, Lan Qingyan shouldn't be in so much pain anymore. The doctor couldn't help but look at the pharmacist beside him and asked, "Do you have any good ideas?" The pharmacist shook his head. Pharmacists weren't doctors. They could only refine pills and couldn't treat illnesses. Moreover, most of the pills refined by pharmacists were beneficial to cultivation. At the same time, they could also refine some pills to treat injuries. However, this had nothing to do with relieving pain. There had never been a pill that could relieve pain. Yu Manlan saw that the doctor and pharmacist were looking at each other, but couldn't think of a solution. Lan Qingyan was in extreme pain. Her face instantly turned gloomy. Young master is in so much pain. Can't you find the reason? You've studied medicine for so long, yet you can't even determine this point? The Lan clan's doctors had outstanding medical skills. Some of them even went directly to the Yu clan to study medicine. After all, the Lan clan and the Yu clan were in-laws. Therefore, it was very convenient for them to help each other. Being reprimanded by Yu Manlan, the doctor lowered his head in shame. "Madam, I've checked the young master's pulse. It's peaceful, and there's no problem at all. Therefore, I don't understand why the young master is in so much pain." The doctor thought that his medical skills weren't bad. However, he couldn't tell what the problem was. How could he treat it? Hearing the doctor's words, Yu Manlan couldn't help but be startled. Peaceful pulse? How can the young master's pulse be peaceful in this state? The doctor's face was bitter. He knew that no one would believe his words. However, the pulse was indeed peaceful. He had studied medicine for so long. He couldn't be wrong about this point, right? Trash. Yu Manlan slapped the doctor's face. She couldn't understand the use of sending this trash to the Yu clan to study medicine. After being slapped, although the doctor was very angry, who asked Yu Manlon to have a noble status. Thus, even if he felt vexed, he could only endure it. Yu Manlon gazed at the alchemist before her and said, "Go get all the doctors in the clan. If they can't cure the young master, then all of you don't have to live anymore." Hearing Yu Manlon's words, the pharmacist didn't dare delay. She quickly ran out of the room. To him, every time he came to the place where the young master's family lived, it was a kind of torture. After ordering the pharmacist around, Yu Manlon looked at the doctor, who was still in a daze. She couldn't help but say angrily, "Why are you still in a daze? You want to rule by law." Hearing this, the doctor came back to his senses and went to Lan Qingyan's side. "Young master, what did you experience before this?" Since he couldn't diagnose it directly, he could only ask for the specific reason. Even though Lan Qingyan's heart was furious to the extreme, under this kind of pain, she simply did not have the strength to do anything. She could only report the situation to the doctor. Chapter 25:16. After receiving Lan Qingyan's answer, the doctor was also shocked. If it was poison, then such a situation was not impossible. When he was studying medicine in the Yu clan, he had learned that some extremely powerful poisons could cause people to be unable to detect the cause. At least, Yu Xiqing was able to concoct such a poison. Therefore, he had always been full of reverence for Yu Xiqing. Yu Xiqing's attainments in poison were simply unparalleled. In their hearts, Yu Xiqing was simply a godlike existence. However, according to his understanding of the situation, there were not many poison masters in the entire Xingxian continent who could concoct such a level of poison. Although he had always believed in his own medical skills, he also knew his own limits. Encountering such a level of poison, he had no way to neutralize it. The doctor took Lan Qingyan's pulse again. After confirming that there was no sign of poisoning, he became more certain of his conjecture. After thinking for a moment, the doctor still told Yu Manlon his conjecture. After hearing this answer, Yu Manlon's heart was also shocked. As a member of the Yu clan, she naturally had a certain understanding of such a situation. However, she had never had much interest in medicine. Therefore, all these years, she only knew a little about it, but was not proficient in it. If this was really the case, then the person who poisoned Lan Qingyan was not simple. "Qingyan, tell mother who poisoned you." Yu Manlon's eyes were gloomy. The other party actually poisoned Lan Qingyan so viciously. It was truly abominable. Until now, she still did not know what Lan Qingyan encountered in the Battle of Zhuolu. Now, it seemed that she really experienced a lot of danger in the Battle of Zhuolu. Lan Qingyan naturally heard the doctor's answer. Her hatred for Bailey Hongzhuang immediately deepened. She did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to poison her so horribly. She really underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. "Bailey Hongzhuang." Lan Qingyan gritted her teeth and said Bailey Hongzhuang's name. "It's all because of that bitch. I will definitely take her life." However, after saying this, Lan Qingyan's entire body was about to collapse. It was really too painful. "Bailey Hongzhuang?" Yu Manlon silently repeated this name. Ever since Lan Qingyan returned, she had already heard this name several times. The other party caused Qingyan to lose her position as the patriarch and broke Qingyan's arm. Who would have thought that he would actually dare to poison Qingyan? Did the other party not know that the Yu clan was also Qingyan's backer? This was simply a provocation. At this moment, Yu Manlon bore a grudge against Bailey Hongzhuang. Not to mention that Lan Qingyan would not let Bailey Hongzhuang off. She would not let her off either. After the pharmacist called all the doctors over, the news of Lan Qingyan's accident spread throughout the Lan family. The cultivators who were participating together with Lan Qingyan quickly guessed the reason behind this. They couldn't help but lament in their hearts. The young lord had really made an unwise decision in the battle for deer chasing this time. If it wasn't for that, they wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Lan Jingquang and the others couldn't help but frown when they found out about this matter. This was truly a case of one trouble after another. Chapter 25:17. After the diagnosis of all the doctors in the Lan clan, Everyone helplessly concluded that there was no problem with Lan Qingyin's pulse. Therefore, they all affirmed the first doctor's judgment. Because, other than this reason, they couldn't think of any other reason. They had no problem treating ordinary illnesses, and they could also detoxify ordinary poisons. However, for a poison of this level, it wasn't something they could easily detoxify. Even in the entire Xingxian continent, there were only a few people who could detoxify it. Therefore, after everyone's discussion, there was only one way left, and that was to send Lan Qingyun to the Yu clan. Other than this, there was no other way. After Lan Qingyun knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had poisoned her with such a powerful poison, her feelings were extremely complicated. She really didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have such a level of poison. She really underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. Although she was extremely angry, Lan Qingyun's life was hanging by a thread under the torment of such pain. This kind of torture was simply unbearable. Lan Jingquang, the second elder, and the others rushed over after knowing that Lan Qingyun's situation was so serious. Lan Qingyun's arm was bleeding nonstop, and her face was extremely pale. Cold sweat covered her forehead. Jingquang, we can only send Qingyun to the Yu clan now. If this continues, Qingyun definitely won't be able to take it. After seeing Lan Jingquang, Yu Manlan felt as if she had seen her pillar of support. She immediately told him the suggestions of the doctors. Lan Jingquang looked at Lan Qingyun's painful appearance and couldn't help but frown. He said, Qingyun's injuries are very serious now. If the journey is bumpy, I'm afraid it will be even more unfavorable. Why don't we invite your aunt over? But if we inform my aunt and wait for her to come over, it will take a lot of time. Looking at Qingyun's condition, I don't know if she can hold on for that long. Yu Manlan's face was full of worry. If possible, it would be best to invite Yu Siqing. However, with the current situation, it was really too late. She was also very helpless in her heart. When the Yu clan was in trouble, she and Qingyun were the first to return. Just this point alone had already caused the Yu clan to have a lot of complaints. It could be felt just by looking at the communication between them these days. If she sent someone to invite her aunt at this time, her aunt might not be willing to come. She knew Yu Siqing's character very well. Even if it was the Yu clan's clan master, Yu Siqing would not give him face, let alone her. If she directly sent Lan Qingyun over and brought some greeting gifts, she believed that Yu Siqing would be willing to help. Hearing Yu Siqing's words, Lan Jingquang thought for a moment and felt that Yu Siqing's words made sense. Anyone could tell that Lan Qingyun's current state was too weak. If this dragged on, no one knew if she could hold on. Since that's the case, let's not delay any longer. Immediately send someone to prepare the carriage and set off. Lan Jingquang immediately gave the order. Lan Borong and Lan Hongtai also came to visit Lan Qingyun after they heard the news. As the young master of the Lan clan, nothing must happen to Lan Qingyun. Chapter 25:18. Along with the news of Bailey Hongzhuang leading Limitless Palace's team to obtain first place in the team and individual competition, Bailey Hongzhuang's reputation in Limitless Palace rose rapidly. Initially, the disciples who were suspicious of Bailey Hongzhuang, the sudden appearance of the young palace master, no longer had any doubts after knowing the results. On the contrary, everyone was more and more supportive of Bailey Hongzhuang. They had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang before and never knew that Limitless Palace had such a young palace master. That was why they had doubts in their hearts. And when they found out about Bailey Hongzhuang's battle results from Pei Yifan and the others, all the disciples' worship for Bailey Hongzhuang was like a torrential river. Some of the cultivators who didn't have the opportunity to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu were even more vexed. Just thinking about it, they knew how great it was to participate in the Battle of Zhuolu. It was simply limitless glory. The young lord of the Lan family was actually taught a lesson by the young palace master. She had helped everyone in Limitless Palace to vent their anger. It was a pity that they didn't have the chance to experience it personally, but now that they knew about it, they felt incomparably refreshed. Not only were the disciples full of admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang, even the elders of Limitless Palace were glowing with radiance. They were full of praises for Bailey Hongzhuang. All these years, they had been bullied by the elders of other forces. Now they could finally hold their heads high. The next time they went out, they wanted to see which forces elders still dared to look down on them. At this moment, even if the elders of the Lan family were to stand in front of them, they wouldn't have any confidence. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally felt the changes in Limitless Palace. Thinking back to before she participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, she was met with suspicious gazes. Now, no matter where she went, the disciples of Limitless Palace would politely address her as young palace master. The change in treatment wasn't small at all. Since Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the assessment, she had been criticized and doubted by everyone all the way until now. Speaking of which, the feeling of being supported like this was really good. Bailey Hongzhuang liked this feeling very much. After all, she had relied on her own strength and performance in exchange for this. No one liked to be questioned and ridiculed. Although Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care much about these things, she felt particularly peaceful when these voices disappeared. Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer in a hurry after learning that the Sun Moon Palace's situation had taken a turn for the better. Instead, she directly sent a letter to the Sun Moon Palace, writing down her thoughts. If father and mother's body condition recovered well enough, then 3 months later, they would be able to appear in the Lan family. If his parents had not fully recovered, then they would wait a little longer. Anyway, she had already waited for so many years. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind waiting a little longer. During these days, she was cultivating in Limitless Palace while waiting for Bewitching. She believed that Bewitching would come to find her very soon, after he had settled the matters of Tiangang sect. Actually, she had a plan in her heart. It was just that she wasn't sure if it would succeed. Master, what kind of poison did you give Lan Qingyan? Chapter 25:19. Not only Little Black, Little White, and Baisher could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang after hearing the discussion. They were also very curious. Looking at the excited faces of the 3 little radish heads, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. These 3 little guys had always wanted to know everything. 10,000 worms gnawing on the heart. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. When she went to rescue her parents, Lan Qingyan, and the rest went to the dungeon to see Mu Lingbing and Lan Qingyan. When she rescued her parents, she clearly noticed the new scars on her mother's body. She didn't need to think to know that it was either Yu Manlan or Lan Qingyan who had caused it. Especially the red and swollen slap on Mu Lingbing's face. It was as if it had hit her heart. From that moment on, she was determined to return all of this to Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan. Furthermore, after understanding the pain her parents had to endure, she felt that no matter what she did, she would never be able to return all of this to them. She wanted Lan Qingyan and the rest to know what pain was, and what it was like to be in so much pain that they wished they were dead. 10,000 worms gnawing on the heart. The 3 beasties' eyes lit up. Just by hearing the name, they knew that this poison was not simple. This poison should have already taken effect in Lan Qingyan's body. She will feel immense pain all over her body. Countless amounts of pain will drill out from every cell, making it impossible to avoid. Furthermore, as long as there are wounds on her body, the wounds will not heal. Every 7 days of pain, the pain will disappear for a day. However, when the pain comes again, the pain will rise to another level. When Bailey Hongzhuang was concocting this poison, she only wanted Lan Qingyan to have a taste of this pain. All these years, the pain that Lan Jingquang and his family gave them was 1,000 times, 10,000 times more painful than this. Now she wanted them to have a good taste of what pain felt like. However, although this pain is unbearable, it won't take her life. After all, I still need to fight her head-on. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lan Qingyan had been in the limelight for so many years because she stole her rainbow pearl. Now, she wanted to defeat Lan Qingyan with her own hands. Letting her die like this would be letting her off too easily. Most of the time, the pain in the heart was much more painful than the pain in the body. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the 3 beasts nodded. I'll let Lan Qingyan suffer for a period of time and collect some interest. In the future, she'll be in for a good time. Xiao Hei's face was filled with excitement. Ever since it saw Lan Qingyan, it hated Lan Qingyan even more. However, Just as its master had said, it felt that defeating Lan Qingyan in front of everyone in the Long clan would be the most satisfying. Xiao Bai and Bai Shi also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with sparkling eyes. No matter what choice master made, they would support her 100%. Right now, Lan Qingyan still did not understand why they were doing all this. However, not long after, when the Long clan found out about all this, their expressions would be very interesting. If I'm not wrong, the Long clan has no way of dispelling the poison that I concocted. Right now, they should have brought Lan Qingyan to the Yu clan. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. Everything was within her plan. Chapter 25-20. They had some understanding of Yu Siqing's attainments in the art of medicine and poison. However, in their opinion, their master's medical skills were still superior. After all, Yu Siqing took such a long time to detoxify their master's poison, causing the entire Yu clan to suffer heavy losses. Thinking about it, until now, the Yu clan still hadn't recovered from that loss. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. The poison this time is harder to detoxify than the previous one. I'm not sure if Yu Siqing can detoxify it. Ever since the previous incident, Yu Siqing must have been working hard to make greater progress in the art of medicine and poison these days. Regardless of whether she can detoxify it or not, this poison has a time limit. After 3 months, it will automatically detoxify. We just need to keep them busy for a while. Lan Qingyan wanted her to make a fool of herself in front of the Long clan. Now it seemed that this wasn't an easy task. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the three beasts finally understood. Their master wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. Preparing such a strange poison for Lan Qingyan first made the entire Long clan shocked, then made the entire Yu clan busy. Their master deliberately didn't let them be idle. Thinking about it, the Long clan was also surging like a storm. The young lord was poisoned, and the situation was so serious. The disturbance wasn't small. Once Lan Qingyan died, the Long clan's situation would be even more mysterious. Just these 3 months' time was enough to make the Long clan stir up quite a lot of commotion. Originally, as the successor of the Rainbow Pearl, Lan Qingyan's position in the Long clan was unshakable. However, there were definitely many outstanding juniors in the Long clan. No one would be willing to be under others, not to mention that Lan Qingyan herself wasn't a virtuous young lord. As long as Lan Qingyan's situation wasn't stabilized, the changes in the Long clan would be irreversible. I think that Yu Siqing will find it difficult to resolve this problem in a short period of time. That would be very interesting. Xiao Bai's eyes flickered with interest. She was really curious about this good show. I've already sent people to monitor the movements of the Long clan and Yu clan. I believe there will be news in a few days. Bailey Hongzhuang was full of smiles. In the past, they had been passive for so many years. Now it was time to create some trouble for Lan Qingyan and the others. Thinking about it, they, who were in the dark and didn't know that revenge was approaching, should be enjoying this process. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan accompanied Lan Qingyan all the way to the Yu clan. Ever since Lan Qingyan fell into a state of severe pain, her condition had not improved at all. Lan Qingyan could not even speak after such an action. She had fallen into a coma. Not only that, the wounds on Lan Qingyan's body were constantly bleeding. No matter what method was used, it could not be stopped. Therefore, Yu Manlan could only continuously feed Lan Qingyan blood-forming pills. Otherwise, if this continued, Lan Qingyan would have already died from excessive blood loss. In fact, Yu Manlan was also a little dissatisfied. If Lan Jingquang and the rest could have healed Lan Qingyan's arm earlier, then the current situation wouldn't be so bad. In Chapter 25-21. Jingquang, that Bailey Hongzhuang is too hateful. Her methods are so despicable. Qingyan's current state is all because of that Bailey Hongzhuang. You have to avenge Qingyan. Yu Manlan's eyes were filled with hatred. That damned Bailey Hongzhuang dared to hurt her daughter. She couldn't let her off so easily. Hearing this, Lan Jingquang's eyes were malicious and ruthless. The battle between opponents is cruel. Qingyan didn't win against her this time, so she ended up like this. If Qingyan was strong enough, The one who would end up like this would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing this, Yu Manlan's expression couldn't help but change a little. Qingyan has already ended up like this. Instead of helping Qingyan vent her anger, you say such words? Yu Manlan couldn't help but be angry. Her chest heaved violently. She felt that Lan Jingquang was becoming more and more inhumane. No matter what, Lan Qingyan was still his daughter. Now that he saw his daughter suffering so much, shouldn't Lan Jingquang's heart ache and think of ways to avenge his daughter? Lan Jingquang glanced at Yu Manlan indifferently. It's because of you that Qingyan has developed such a character. The Battle of Zhuolu is a battle for the younger generation. You and I can't participate. What's the use? Are we going to charge into Limitless Palace now? Do you know how strong Limitless Palace is? Once the two sides clash, no one will have an advantage. Even if we win, the Lan family will suffer heavy losses. All of our opponents will take advantage of our weakness to take a share of the loot. Is this good for Qingyan? What a woman! Lan Jingquang couldn't hide the disgust in his eyes. He chose Yu Manlan because she was a young miss from an aristocratic family. Her background was solid and her judgment wasn't bad. But now, it seemed that Yu Manlan was extremely stupid. She couldn't even understand such a simple problem. Every time something happened, other than being angry and anxious, Yu Manlan couldn't give any meaningful suggestions. She was extremely stupid. It was because of this that he didn't want to interact with Yu Manlan. He already had enough questions to think about. If he still had to answer her questions, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Following Lan Jingquang's words, Yu Manlan was also stunned. She stood rooted to the ground and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Indeed, she had never thought about these problems. She only felt that Qingyan was being tortured so miserably, so she must give the other party a ruthless lesson. This was the only way for them to vent their anger. However, after hearing Lan Jingquang's explanation, she realized that she had underestimated the situation. Are we just going to do nothing and let Bailey Hongzhuang continue to be arrogant? When Yu Manlan thought of this, she also felt that it was unbearable. If this was the case, then wouldn't Qingyan have suffered so much for nothing? Lan Jingquang looked at Yu Manlan's helpless expression, and the disgust in his heart grew even stronger. This woman had been with her for so long, but she still didn't know how to look at the whole thing from the perspective of the family. Not to mention that Bailey Hongzhuang poisoned Lan Qingyan. They didn't have any evidence. On the contrary, the other party might even splash dirty water on them. Even if they did produce evidence, the other party was in opposition to them. They wouldn't care at all. Chapter 25-22. If the Lan family really used this reason to reason with Wuji Palace, they would become a joke in everyone's eyes. Qingyan should solve the trouble she caused herself. If you had listened to me all these years, Qingyan would have become like this again. Before you have enough confidence, don't rashly alarm the opponent. Once you make a move, you must kill the opponent. Don't try to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. Not only is there no effect, but it's also a joke. Lan Jingquang's expression was gloomy. If Lan Qingyan's personality was similar to his, she would have long been the head of the Lan family. Why would they need to pay attention to that old man Lan Hongtai? Since that old man's head was filled with thoughts of the dead Lan Yunxiao, then let him continue. They didn't need to pay attention to him at all. Back then, how much did he hate Lan Yunxiao? That was why he plotted all of this. In fact, he succeeded. Before he made his move, Lan Yunxiao and the rest didn't notice anything. It was because of this that Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were caught unprepared. Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's attitude and behavior were all within his expectations. Even if he was labeled as despicable and shameless, so what? In this game, he was the winner. Lan Yunxiao was only a prisoner. He had let Lan Yunxiao live in glory for more than 20 years, but it was only 20 years. After that, everything had nothing to do with Lan Yunxiao anymore. Now in the Lan family, who dared to mention this matter? Except for that old man Lan Hongtai. However, he had long since stopped caring about that old man. This was enough. Hearing Lan Jingquang's words, Yu Manlan was speechless. Lan Jingquang's gaze was malicious and terrifying. Seeing him like this, Yu Manlan couldn't help but recall the Lan Jingquang from 19 years ago. At that time, when she learned of Lan Jingquang's thoughts, she was also shocked. However, she didn't like Mu Lingbing and chose to agree. At that time, Lan Jingquang acted like he was Lan Yunxiao's good brother in the entire Lan family. No one suspected him. What happened after that overturned everyone's understanding of Lan Jingquang. In fact, she also felt that Lan Jingquang was very terrifying. Lan Qingyan woke up in a daze and heard Lan Jingquang's words. Her heart was filled with regret. It was because she had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang that she had ended up in this situation. If she hadn't, the situation would have been completely different. Unfortunately, at this point, she had no other choice. She only hoped that her great-aunt could remove the poison in her body as soon as possible. 3 months later, she would have a chance to compete with Bailey Hongzhuang again. When that happens, I will definitely succeed in one fell swoop and strangle that damned Bailey Hongzhuang to death. She Lan Qingyan would not allow any stain in her life. She would personally use her own blood to wipe away this stain. At this moment, Lan Qingyan finally understood what Lan Jingquang had taught her all these years. Lan Jingquang was right. After running around for a while, Lan Qingyan's group finally arrived at Yutian City. However, compared to the welcome Lan Qingyan and the others had received when they first arrived, the attitude of the Yu clan's people, when they saw them this time, was clearly a lot colder. Chapter 25-23. This situation was within Yu Manlan's expectations. When they left, they were too disloyal. It wasn't strange for them to receive such cold treatment. However, she didn't dare to continue staying here. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth it if she was implicated and died. Lan Jingquang naturally knew where the problem lay. He felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. Yu Manlan hadn't done a single thing right during this period of time. She came to the Yu clan to play when she was full, and had nothing to do. In the end, she left first after such a storm. The Yu clan was a huge support behind them. Now, a crack had appeared because of Yu Manlan's stupid actions. If they wanted to make up for it, they would have to pay a huge price. Lan Jingquang knew Yu Xiqing's personality better than Yu Manlan. Yu Xiqing had wanted to deal with Lan Yunxiao's family. However, because of his eagerness, he had paid a huge price. All these years, he had often given many treasures to Yu Xiqing. If possible, he didn't want to interact with this woman. This woman was cold-blooded. She had no feelings, didn't care about family, and didn't care about morality. As long as she offended Yu Xiqing, she could do anything. Therefore, even Lan Jingquang had to be careful when facing Yu Xiqing. Once Yu Xiqing was angered, even he couldn't bear the consequences. The Yu clan head was obviously disappointed in his daughter Yu Manlan. A married daughter was like water that had been poured out. She had left at such a crucial moment. Therefore, the Yu clan head was unwilling to pay attention to her. In this regard, Yu Manlan could only awkwardly please everyone. This was related to her daughter's life. Father, is aunt at her place now? Yu Manlan's face was full of smiles as she probed Yu Taotian. Yu Taotian glanced at Yu Manlan indifferently. His eyes were filled with indifference. Her place has been destroyed. It's not like you don't know. She has moved to a new place. Hearing the mockery in Yu Taotian's words, Yu Manlan felt even more awkward. However, she could only pretend that she didn't hear it. May I know where aunt is living now? Qingyan has been poisoned and is on the verge of death. Only aunt can save her. Yu Taotian's expression changed when he heard this. He didn't expect Lan Qingyan to be in such a situation. Xiqing has been in seclusion recently to research the art of medicine and poison. She's staying in another courtyard. You guys should go take a look. Even though he was very concerned about Lan Qingyan's situation, the displeasure on Yu Taotian's face did not dissipate. Lan Jingquang's face was full of smiles. He walked up and said, "Father-in-law, this is the jade coral I got a few days ago. I've been wanting to give it to you for a long time. I hope you like it." Yu Taotian looked at the jade coral in front of him, and his expression turned slightly better. He had always liked jade, and this jade coral's design and craftsmanship were very outstanding. He fell in love with it at first glance. In comparison, he liked Lan Jingquang more than he liked Yu Manlan. "Since you're already here, there's no need to bring gifts. Chapter 25-24. Father-in-law. Apart from this, I also brought many gifts for mother-in-law and siblings. However, Qingyan's injuries are very serious, so we have to go and find aunt first. I hope father-in-law will forgive us. Lan Jingquang's face was brimming with a humble and courteous smile, and his words were flawless. Yu Taotian looked at Lan Jingquang with satisfaction and nodded. Qingyan's injuries are the most important. Go quickly. Yu Manlan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw Yu Taotian's attitude soften a little. Speaking of which, Lan Jingquang was the one who dealt with these matters in an orderly manner. He was able to solve these problems extremely well every time. Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan left together. On the way, Lan Jingquang was unwilling to say anything to Yu Manlan. If not for Yu Manlan's low EQ, how could the relationship be so rigid the last time she came to the Yu clan? Every time Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan caused trouble, he had to help clean it up. Lan Qingyan was fine, but Yu Manlan couldn't even handle this kind of matter. It was really disappointing. Whenever Yu Manlan caused such trouble, it would usually require a huge price to solve it. Thinking about it, he had given a lot of things to the Yu clan over the years. Yu Manlan naturally knew that she had caused trouble for Lan Jingquang again, and didn't dare to say anything. She wasn't as good at dealing with people as Lan Jingquang. In the past, she was the young miss of the Yu clan. Her life had been smooth sailing since she was young. After marrying into the Lan clan, she didn't need to worry about these things. Very quickly, Lan Jingquang and the rest brought Lan Qingyan to Yu Siqing's new residence. Aunt was very angry about the previous matter. It won't be easy to calm her down and save Qingyan. Yu Manlan looked at Lan Jingquang with difficulty. Yu Siqing had always been cold and heartless. Only the matters of the Yu clan could move her. The main reason was that Yu Siqing wanted to live here. It would save her a lot of trouble. Although Lan Qingyan was Yu Manlan's daughter, she was still an outsider to Yu Siqing. I know. If it wasn't for your stupidity, I wouldn't have so many things to deal with. Lan Jingquang looked at Yu Manlan coldly and said, "Watch your words later. No matter what she asks, just agree to it." Yu Manlan nodded. This matter concerned Lan Qingyan's life. There couldn't be any more problems. Lan Jingquang's eyes were gloomy. He had dealt with Yu Siqing for many years and knew her very well. Before coming to the Yu clan, he was already prepared to pay the price. What happened next was just as Lan Jingquang had expected. Yu Siqing's attitude after seeing Yu Manlan was even colder than Yu Taotian's. It was as if she didn't want anyone to disturb her. Yu Manlan hurriedly told her about Lan Qingyan's poisoning. Only then did Yu Siqing close the door. Tu was tu, so what? Yu Manlan was dumbfounded. It seemed that Yu Siqing really didn't care about their friendship at all. Chapter 25-25. Even though they were dissatisfied, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan could do nothing about it. After all, the most important thing now was to save Lan Qingyan's life. Compared to some treasures, Lan Qingyan's life was more important. However, this price really made Lan Jingquang's heart ache. His anger towards Yu Manlan became even stronger. Yu Manlan also knew the anger in Lan Jingquang's heart. She felt guilty and didn't dare to say anything. It would be terrible if she angered Lan Jingquang. After checking on Lan Qingyan's condition, Yu Siqing's brows furrowed. This poison was more complicated than she had imagined. It was on the same level as the disease that appeared in the Yu clan last time. Last time, she spent a lot of time and effort to break it. In the end, she succeeded. However, the Yu clan still suffered heavy losses. It was because of the previous incident that she felt that her medical and poison skills weren't good enough. All along, she felt that her medical and poison skills were unparalleled in the entire Xingxian continent. However, after encountering the poison last time, she realized that there was always someone better than her. The other party's poison skills were even better than hers. If she didn't seize the time to improve her medical and poison skills, the next time she met this opponent, it would be terrible. Last time, she didn't know whether the other party's intention was to take revenge on her or the Yu clan. No matter what, the existence of such an opponent was an unspeakable threat. During this period of time, she had been concentrating on researching medical and poison skills in order to improve herself. The Yu clan naturally complied with all of her requests. All kinds of rare and precious materials were sent to her. Now that Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan had delivered themselves to her, she naturally had to ask for more. These things were very useful to her. However, she didn't expect to encounter this level of poison in Lan Qingyan's body. This was really not simple. After Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang noticed the change in Yu Xiqing's expression, their hearts couldn't help but sink. It seemed that the situation was much worse than they had imagined. Do you know who poisoned her? Yu Xiqing didn't immediately diagnose Lan Qingyan's condition after checking. Instead, she turned around and looked at Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan. It was not easy for the other party to possess such a level of poison. However, whether the other party had obtained such a poison by chance, or had a poison master of such caliber backing him, that would require another judgment. Bailey Hongzhuang. Yu Manlan responded immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang. Yu Xiqing raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of unfamiliarity between her brows. She had never heard of this name. Who is this person? Limitless Palace has just chosen a young palace master. She and Qingyan had quite a bit of conflict during the Battle of Zhuolu. Qingyan's current state is also related to her. Lan Jingquang said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Yu Xiqing finally understood. Originally, she was very worried that the opponent might be targeting them specifically. However, she didn't have any dealings with Limitless Palace. Thinking about it, this was just a dispute between young people. It was just a coincidence. Thinking of this, Yu Xiqing also relaxed a little. Aunt, how is Qingyan? Can this poison be cured? Chapter 25-26. This poison is very complicated. It's definitely not a poison that an ordinary poison master can concoct. From Qingyan's pulse, there are no signs of poisoning. Other than being a little weak, there are no other problems. Even for me, I can only be sure that Qingyan has been poisoned. However, I don't know what kind of poison it is, or how to detoxify it. I need time. Yu Xiqing explained the situation frankly. Based on what she knew, it was most likely a neurotoxin. However, she had no idea how to treat it. Because there were no clues from her pulse, there were no signs of poisoning from Lan Qingyan's appearance. At this moment, Lan Qingyan only showed pain and weakness. However, her lips were not purple, and there were no signs of poisoning in other parts of her body. She had to extract the poisoned blood to be able to determine the cause. However, based on her experience, judging from the other party's secretive nature, it was definitely not an easy task to determine the cause. Hearing Yu Xiqing's words, Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang's hearts sank. Even with Yu Xiqing's medical skills, she could still say such words. This proved that this poison was not just difficult to detoxify. Lan Qingyan was obviously in great pain every day. They had no idea how long she could hold on. And, based on Qingyan's current state, I'm afraid she can't hold on for long, right? Lan Jingquang asked slowly in a deep voice. His eyes shone with worry. Although Lan Qingyan had made a big mistake earlier, he was only angry. If something happened to Lan Qingyan, it would be terrible. Yu Xiqing glanced at Lan Qingyan and continued. If the other party wanted Qingyan's life, they could have directly used a poison that would kill her immediately. However, the other party didn't. From the effects of the poison so far, the other party wants to see Qingyan in pain and torture her. Therefore, Qingyan will be fine for a short period of time. She will just have to suffer a lot. When she said this, Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang's expressions changed. They didn't know if this news was good or bad news. That Bailey Hongzhuang is really too vicious. To actually use such a despicable method to torture Qingyan, simply abominable to the extreme. Yu Manlan was so angry that her face turned ashen. The previous matter had already made her extremely angry. Now that she knew Bailey Hongzhuang's original intention, she was about to explode. Even if they had formed quite a bit of enmity during the Battle of Zhuolu, there was no need to use such a vicious method, right? Although she could not personally experience Lan Qingyan's pain, she could tell from Lan Qingyan's expression that this kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. According to what you said, that Bailey Hongzhuang is only 20 years old. This poison should not be made by her. She might have obtained it by chance. Wuxia analyzed. For a poison of this level, the other party must have been immersed in the art of poison for a long time, and his attainments in it were astonishing. Her understanding of the art of medicine and poison was far superior to that of ordinary people. But until now, she still had no idea how to deal with this kind of poison. The other party should be about the same age as her. Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang looked at each other. If this was really the case, then Qingyan was unlucky. However, this result also made them feel more at ease. Chapter 25-27. Aunt, I'll leave the poison in Qingyan's body to you. You must cure Qingyan. Yu Manlan looked at Wuxia expectantly. Wuxia was their only hope now. If even Wuxia couldn't cure Lan Qingyan, then they really didn't know what to do. If Bailey Hongzhuang had the antidote, then it would be fine. They might be able to get the antidote back by paying a price. But according to Wuxia's judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang only got the poison by chance. Then Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't possibly have the antidote. Wouldn't that be terrible? Wuxia nodded calmly. I'll do my best, but I can't guarantee the result. To her, this kind of poison was also a challenge. However, every new poison would open a new door for her. Therefore, she didn't mind deciphering it. Now, she could no longer underestimate the power of this kind of poison, so she couldn't guarantee anything. After all, when the Yu clan was in trouble last time, she was confident that there wouldn't be any problems. But in the end, the Yu clan suffered a great loss. Hearing Wuxia's words, Yu Manlan and Lan Jingquang looked at each other. Just from Wuxia's attitude, they could tell that Wuxia didn't have enough confidence. Whether or not Lan Qingyan could be saved would depend on Lan Qingyan's luck. Even though the two of them were indescribably anxious, there was no other way except for this method. They could only pin all their hopes on Wuxia. Aunt, then we'll have to trouble you, Lan Jingquang said in a deep voice. If there's anything you need, just let us know. Wuxia nodded and said, You guys go out first. I have to hurry. No one knew how long Lan Qingyan could hold on. But under this kind of pain, the torture for a cultivator was extremely terrifying. Hearing this, Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan didn't dare to continue wasting Wuxia's time. Based on the current situation, the more time they wasted, the more pain Lan Qingyan would have to endure. Bailey Hongzhuang had always been cultivating in Limitless Palace. When she participated in the Battle of Zhuolu, her strength had a huge breakthrough. Although it was good to break through several levels in a row, Bailey Hongzhuang had to pay attention to other problems. Therefore, during this period of time, she had been cultivating on the stairway to heaven. The Primal Chaos tablet helped her raise her cultivation level, but that was only in terms of cultivation level, and her elemental energy density was still a distance away. Taking advantage of this period of time, she had to make up for this gap as soon as possible. If she ignored the existence of this problem, then it would be much more difficult for her to break through in the future. All this time, she had never encountered any bottlenecks in her breakthrough. On one hand, it was because she already had a certain understanding of this kind of breakthrough in her previous life. On the other hand, it was because of her solid foundation. To a cultivator, the most important thing was their foundation. Once the foundation was unstable, it was like building a house. Problems could occur at any time. Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so bitterly cultivating, and the two of them felt gratified. Hongzhuang's success was all for a reason. Even though she had such a great achievement this time, she still didn't have the slightest bit of pride or complacency. Chapter 25-28. A few days later, Bewitching had successfully arrived at Limitless Palace. Compared to the time when Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang first came to Limitless Palace, many disciples didn't know about Bewitching's identity. After the Battle of Zhuolu, the relationship between their young palace mistress and Tiangang sect's young sect master was known by the disciples of Limitless Palace. For a moment, all the female disciples were envious of Bailey Hongzhuang. Tiangang sect's young sect master, Bewitching, was the dream lover of many girls. Now, He had been captured by their young palace mistress. What's more, Li Yongbing and the others had vividly described the domineering performance of their young palace mistress and Di Beichen in the Battle of Zhuolu. Especially when facing the Lan family's young master, Di Beichen's reaction was simply too cool. Therefore, everyone had been looking forward to the appearance of Di Beichen. Once their young palace mistress and Di Beichen were together, the relationship between Limitless Palace and Tiangang sect would be unshakable. At that time, Limitless Palace's status would also rise. This was a great thing. When Di Beichen arrived at Limitless Palace, he noticed that many disciples were looking at him with admiration. Those whispers and discussions accompanied him all the way. He could vaguely hear the discussions of the crowd, and the corner of his lips couldn't help but reveal a smile. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was living well in Limitless Palace during this period of time. All the discussions he heard about Bailey Hongzhuang were praises and support. The results of the Battle of Zhuolu had completely changed Limitless Palace's view of Bailey Hongzhuang. For a long time, no matter where Hongzhuang appeared, she would always be questioned. Now that such a situation had occurred, Di Beichen was truly happy for Bailey Hongzhuang. Soon Di Beichen arrived at Bailey Hongzhuang's palace. Seeing that Di Beichen had arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang's face instantly revealed a joyful smile. "Beichen, you're here." Di Beichen's handsome face had a faint smile, and quickly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. "I rushed over immediately after I finished settling my matters. Did you miss me during this period of time?" The three beasts sat quietly at the side, swinging their feet and sniggering. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips. "Yes. I missed you so much." As soon as these words came out, Di Beichen's eyes widened. His wife was indeed getting bolder and bolder. Since Bailey Hongzhuang, naturally, I'll have to perform well. Di Beichen's smile grew wider and wider. He opened his arms and hugged Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned for a moment when she was suddenly hugged. However, she did not reject him, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Now that all the top forces in the Shengxian continent knew about their relationship, this feeling was somewhat different from before. Even if they had not held a wedding ceremony, it was open and aboveboard. Bailey Hongzhuang wrapped her arms around Di Beichen's back and slowly closed her eyes. Her entire body was extremely relaxed. There was only one battle left to fight. After that, she would be completely at ease. And that day was not far away. Di Beichen could feel the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's state of mind. Immediately, the arm that was hugging Bailey Hongzhuang tightened. Hongzhuang had shed a lot of burden compared to before. Just from her performance alone, one could see that. Chapter 25-29. Following the sound of footsteps from afar, Di Beichen let go of Bailey Hongzhuang and turned around to see Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu slowly walking towards them. After seeing Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng's faces also revealed a big smile. "I'm really looking forward to the day you two get married," Nangong Wu said with a smile. "Hongzhuang will definitely be the most beautiful bride in the world." Although she didn't know how Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang met, seeing how close the two of them were, and how they had supported each other along the way, she knew that the relationship between the two of them was incomparable to that of ordinary people. She only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to complete her revenge as soon as possible and enjoy the happiness that belonged to her. Hearing Nangong Wu's words, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's faces revealed a smile. That day was not far away. "Hongzhuang, send people to keep an eye on the movements of the Lan family and the Yu family. The news has already been sent back," Nangong Wu said slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. What's the situation now? She had been waiting for this specific news. Only after confirming it could she confirm the next step of the plan. It's said that Lan Qingyan's poison acted up not long after she returned to the Lan family. No one in the Lan family could treat her, so they hurriedly sent Lan Qingyan to the Yu family. The three beasties also came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. It seems that the situation was exactly as their master had thought. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. This situation was already within her expectations. It seemed that Lan Qingyan's life was not easy now. Nangong Wu and the rest noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's smile and understood. Hongzhuang, you poisoned her? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head, frankly admitting it. That's right. When Lan Qingyan and I clashed during the Battle of Zhuolu, I fed her this poison. As soon as she said this, Nangong Wu and the others looked at each other. But they all felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was right. Compared to what Lan Jingquang did to Bailey Hongzhuang's family, this was nothing. According to the news from the spies, Lan Qingyan's poison was not fatal, but extremely painful. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. This poison itself is not fatal, but it is very torturous. She would not let Lan Qingyan die so easily, because she still had many things to do. Only when all these things were revealed to Lan Jingquang's family, that would be the most important moment. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, the three of them could not help but be stunned. So, was Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately teasing the Lan family? The Lan family thought that Lan Qingyan was going to die, and hurriedly sent her to the Yu family. I'm afraid that the Lan family is not peaceful during this period. If they knew the true effects of this poison, I'm afraid they would be angered to death. Nangong Wu's face also showed a playful smile. It seemed that this situation was more interesting than she had imagined. Bewitching also knew about the poison during the Battle of Zhuolu, but he did not care. No matter what Hongzhuang did, his attitude was only one: support. The Yu family's Yuxiqing's medical and poison skills are very good. Can she neutralize this poison? Yu Linfeng, who had been silent all this while, slowly spoke up. Chapter 2530. Hearing this, Nangong Wu and the others couldn't help but think of the disaster caused by Bailey Hongzhuang's poison in the Yu clan. In terms of medical and poison skills, Yuxiqing might not be Bailey Hongzhuang's opponent. In any case, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't intend to use this opportunity to kill Lan Qingyan. As long as she could stall for some time, it would be enough. According to the news from the Yu clan, after Lan Jingquang and his group went to the Yu clan, they were given the cold shoulder. Because of the previous incident, the Yu clan had some complaints about Yu Manlan and Lan Qingyan, so they didn't welcome them this time. However, after Lan Jingquang gave them a lot of gifts, the situation changed. It's said that in order for Yuxiqing to treat Lan Qingyan, Lan Jingquang paid a big price. Bewitching frowned. Yuxiqing is Lan Qingyan's great-aunt. Does she need to ask for a reward for treating Lan Qingyan? Yu Linfeng nodded and said slowly, You don't know this. Yu Manlan is famous for being cold-blooded and heartless. Even if it's her own people, if you want her to treat someone, you have to see if she's in a good mood. Besides, the previous incident made her feel resentful. It's not strange for her to do something like this. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with coldness. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. If you're not a family, you won't enter the same house. No matter if it's Yuxiqing or Lan Jingquang, their family only valued benefits and not feelings. Therefore, their way of interacting was also like this. It was really amazing. If Lan Jingquang's family had the slightest bit of affection, they wouldn't have treated them so poorly. Now that they had to pay such a price, they deserved it. Is there any progress on Yuxiqing's treatment of Lan Qingyan? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Nangong Wu shook her head. It's said that Yuxiqing is thinking of a way to cure the poison. However, from Lan Jingquang and the other serious expressions, I'm afraid that Yuxiqing doesn't have enough confidence. At this point, Nangong Wu couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. Her ability was really amazing. If Lan Jingquang and the others knew that there was an enemy like Bailey Hongzhuang waiting for revenge from afar, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. They didn't have much time left. It wouldn't be long before everything would be revealed to them. That's good news. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a faint smile. The Lan family had spent a large amount of resources, and Yuxiqing's medical and poison skills had also been questioned. From the looks of it, it will be very difficult for Yuxiqing to harm you at the divine pond of ice and snow in 3 months. Bewitching's face was relaxed. Initially, he was worried that they would encounter a lot of problems after going to the Lan family. Now that Lan Qingyan had become like this, the entire Lan family was in turmoil. Thinking about it, by the time they went to the divine pond of ice snow, Lan Qingyan might not be able to participate. This poison will probably be cured in less than 3 months. At least in these 3 months, Lan Qingyin's strength won't be able to increase by much. Everyone in the Lan family is focused on this matter. I'm afraid that they won't have the energy to pay attention to me. At this time, Yu Linfeng's voice rang out again. Next month is the Yu family's day to recruit doctors. Every time the Yu family recruits doctors, it's a big event in Yutian City. I just don't know if the Yu family will continue to hold it this time. Chapter 2531. The Yu clan is recruiting doctors? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows rose slightly, her dark and deep eyes filled with interest. This really made her very interested. That's right. Yu Linfeng nodded. As a medical family, the Yu clan's reputation in the Shengxian continent has always been very resounding. Every 3 years, the Yu clan would recruit doctors. The selected doctors would be nurtured by the Yu clan and learn the art of healing and poison. Most importantly, they would be trained in medicine. A portion of these doctors would stay in the Yu clan, while the rest would be recommended by the Yu clan to other powers. It is because of this that the Yu clan's position is so stable. Many powers owe the Yu clan a favor, and those doctors who went to other clans would also thank the Yu clan and return the favor. Following Yu Linfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also completely understood. So there was such a relationship between the two. No wonder the Yu clan's position was so high. Using this method for many years, the benefits would be huge. It seemed like the Yu clan was helping some doctors to improve their medical skills without any requirements. But in reality, the Yu clan's benefits were definitely not small. No power would not need doctors. Even if the Yu clan did not ask for anything and recommended doctors, the other party would not accept them without giving them anything. Therefore, this was an extremely profitable business. The Yu clan had lost a lot of people because of that incident. I think they would place extra importance on this recruitment, so this plan should not be cancelled. Beichen's eyes were filled with wisdom as he analyzed the situation. Nangongwu nodded. Indeed, the Yu clan would not give up. This was the best time for the Yu clan to recover their strength. The previous loss had greatly damaged the Yu clan's strength. If they did not quickly recover, it would not be a good thing for the Yu clan. If their judgment was not wrong, the scale of the Yu clan's recruitment this time would be bigger than before. The number of doctors they would recruit would also be more. This is a good opportunity. Why don't we take this opportunity to go to Yutian City again? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a charming smile. She had originally planned to go to Yutian City, but she did not think that there would be such an opportunity. In this way, many doctors would go to Yutian City together. Then, when they went there, no one would suspect them. She could even sneak into the Yu clan as a doctor. Towards the Yu clan, Bailey Hongzhuang's hatred was not any weaker than Lan Jingquang's. If it wasn't because Yu's mischief, all this would not have happened. Grandpa and Grandma would live happily together. Without Yu Xiqing's help, Lan Jingquang would not be able to transfer the rainbow deity pearl from her body into Lan Qingyin's body. In this way, even if Lan Jingquang was crazy enough to take out the rainbow sacred pearl from her body, as long as Lan Qingyin was unable to merge with it, their family would not be reduced to such a state. With Yu, as long as Bailey Hongzhuang thought of how her father and mother had knelt in front of the Yu clan while holding her in swaddling clothes, begging them to save her, not only did they not help at all, they even tried to kill them. She felt the hatred in her bones tremble. This was a blood feud. Chapter 2532. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Yu Linfeng and the rest looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang was planning. The last time we went to Yutian City, we were in too much of a hurry, so we couldn't do anything to the Yu clan. Now that there are so many people entering Yutian City, we don't have to worry about hiding. Coincidentally, I also want to see Lan Qingyin's situation. I can also see Lan Jingquang and Yu Manlan in advance. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. Back then, she didn't have the ability and could only allow them to do whatever they wanted. But now, she had to collect interest bit by bit. The Yu clan, Lan Jingquang's family, she would make them pay a painful price. When she saw the pain her grandmother had suffered all these years, from a young and beautiful beauty to a person that even she didn't want to see, this kind of pain was definitely hard for ordinary people to understand. From then on, she made up her mind. She would return all of this to Wuxia. The pain Wuxia had inflicted on her grandmother all these years, she would return it to her double. Originally, it would take a lot of effort to get in touch with Wuxia. Now that there was such a good opportunity in front of her, she naturally wouldn't miss it. She had also prepared a big gift for Wuxia, a gift that Wuxia felt was very familiar, but she couldn't understand it at all. Yu Linfeng and the rest looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Just from Bailey Hongzhuang's tone, they already knew that the Yu clan was in trouble this time. Last time, Bailey Hongzhuang's actions had already caused the Yu clan to suffer a huge loss. But from Bailey Hongzhuang's words, they didn't do anything. This meant that when Bailey Hongzhuang went to the Yu clan this time, she would definitely do something. Just by thinking about it, they could guess the situation that the Yu clan would encounter. Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu looked at each other. They could vaguely guess what Bailey Hongzhuang was going to do. However, they believed that Bailey Hongzhuang already had a plan in mind. Since he wanted revenge, they had always supported him. Hongzhuang, there are many smart people in the Yu clan. Wuxia is even more vicious and merciless. If you go to Yutian City, you must be careful. Do not be careless. Yu Linfeng warned. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Master, don't worry. I won't let anything happen to me. The last time she went to Yutian City, she already had a certain amount of experience. She also had a certain understanding of the Yu clan's spies. What's more, she wasn't strong enough the last time. This time, she and Bewitching had improved in all aspects. I will accompany Hongzhuang. You can rest assured. His deep and generous voice was filled with determination. It also gave off an indescribable sense of security. Protecting Hongzhuang was his responsibility. Yutian City wasn't a tiger's den. No matter what kind of defense the other party had, they were confident that they could deal with it. Seeing this, Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu were also relieved. Whether it was Bewitching or Bailey Hongzhuang, they were all outstanding people in the younger generation. With their strength, it shouldn't be a problem for them to deal with this. After all, even the Yu clan's young master couldn't be compared to Bailey Hongzhuang and Nangong Wu. Chapter 2533. After Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching entered the bedroom to discuss the matters of the trip to Yutian City. Bewitching, actually, I was planning to go to Yutian City. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. She had been waiting for news from the Yu clan's spies. As long as Lan Qingyan went to the Yu clan, and Wuxia was unable to break the antidote, then she would have a chance. Bewitching nodded slightly and did not reply, only listening to Bailey Hongzhuang. I was planning to disguise myself and enter the Yu clan with another identity. As long as Lan Qingyan's poison is not broken, then I only need to say that I can break the poison. Then Lan Jingquang and the others will definitely treat me as an important guest. This way, I can also do some things to the Yu clan. However, it just so happens that the Yu clan is recruiting doctors. If I go as a doctor, it will not attract attention. The Yu clan did so many evil things in the past. Since I am going to face the Lan clan soon, then the Yu clan will be prepared. Once Wuxia knew that her parents weren't dead and had recovered, she would know that her poison had been neutralized and would be on her guard. At that time, it will not be so convenient for us to make a move. However, before all of this is revealed, it would be better if we settle the Yu clan's matter first. Lan Jingquang will lose a huge support. When my parents and I appear in the Lan clan together, the situation will also change. Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with wisdom. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang had been thinking about whether to deal with the Yu clan or the Lan clan first. However, in the end, it would be best to deal with the Yu clan first. Only by making Lan Jingquang lose his left and right arms would they have a better effect when the time comes. Therefore, she fed Lan Qingyan poison during the Battle of Zhuolu. Perhaps everything was predestined. She also did not think that her plan would go so smoothly. After Di Baichen heard the plan in Bailey Hongzhuang's mind, his eyes brightened. Wife, your idea is very good. Compared to the first method, this second method is the best way to enter the Yu clan. When the time comes, there will be many strangers in the Yu clan. If we leave after doing all this, no one will notice. At that time, Lan Jingquang and the others will definitely panic. Once the Yu clan is in danger or a plague, with Lan Jingquang's personality, he will definitely leave. Then the enmity between the Yu clan and Lan will be formed. Not only that, when we were heading towards the Lan clan, the Yu clan must still be busy with their own matters. They simply had no time to care about the Lan clan's situation. 2. Baichen and Lan was Yus, Lan Qingyan and Lan, and the others were Lans. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. That's the way. The two of them looked at each other. They had already made up their minds. Next, it was time for them to take action. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately wrote a letter and sent it to the Sun Moon Palace. She had to tell her parents about her plan, so that they would not worry about her. Chapter 25-34. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen had made their decision, Bailey Hongzhuang began to immerse herself in making the poison. She would give them a taste of their own medicine. The Yu clan was most proficient in the art of medicine and poison. She would use this poison to give the Yu clan and Yu Xiqing a slap in the face. Yu Xiqing would never have thought that the baby, who was not a threat in her eyes, would give her a slap in the area she was most proficient in. It was not that she did not want revenge, but the time had not come yet. The evil things she had done in the past, she would have to taste the consequences sooner or later. Bailey Hongzhuang was not a kind person. In her opinion, the entire Yu clan was an accomplice in that matter. Di Baichen and the others also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's poison was very important, so they did not disturb her. However, no matter what Bailey Hongzhuang needed, they would always find it for Bailey Hongzhuang. Yu Linfeng was also very generous to Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as it was something in Wuji Palace, once Bailey Hongzhuang needed it, he would immediately send it over. Nangong Wu was also very interested in the art of medicine and poison. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang busy with these herbs all day long, she also felt very curious. After 2 confrontations with Yu Xiqing, Bailey Hongzhuang had a good understanding of Yu Xiqing's strength. This time, she wanted to make a poison that even Yu Xiqing could not detoxify, and let this famous family in the Shengxian continent suffer a huge blow. It was precisely because she wanted to ensure that the effect of the poison could not be detoxified that Bailey Hongzhuang spent a lot of time on it. In fact, during this time, Bailey Hongzhuang had also been thinking about the method of making the poison. After so many things, she found that only this kind of poison could have enough lethality and destructive power in the face of an entire force. Just like how she dealt with the Qing dynasty's royal family, a poison was enough to make the strength of the Qing dynasty's royal family regress by decades, or even destroy them. While Bailey Hongzhuang was working hard to concoct the poison, Yu Xiqing was working hard to neutralize the poison in Lan Qingyan's body. Lan Qingyan was already tortured beyond recognition by the pain. Sometimes she even wished that she could just die like this. That way, she wouldn't have to endure such pain. She begged Yu Xiqing to think of a way to alleviate her pain, but the answer Yu Xiqing gave her made her feel even more despair. This kind of pain was all-pervasive, and ordinary methods could not reduce the pain at all. Only when Yu Xiqing saw that Lan Qingyan really could not take it anymore would Yu Xiqing make a move. At this time, Lan Qingyan could take the opportunity to rest for a while, but in the end, the medicine's effect would wear off, and she would wake up again from the pain. Lan Qingyan had fainted several times due to dehydration. During this process, her hatred towards Bailey Hongzhuang had reached its peak. She had never thought that a single poison from back then could cause her to suffer to such an extent. She thought that the poison was nothing special, and that it would be easy to detoxify it with her grandaunt's strength. But now she had no clue. During this time, Yu Xiqing had tried a lot of methods, but in the end, the results were not good, and she could not successfully detoxify it. Lan Qingyan even felt that there was a high possibility that she would die from the pain. Chapter 2535. Seeing Lan Qingyan like this, Yu Manlan felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. Ever since Lan Qingyan was young, she had never suffered such great pain. In a short period of time, Lan Qingyan's figure had become much thinner. If this continued, Yu Manlan was really worried that she would never have the chance to see Lan Qingyan again. However, no matter how anxious she did not dare to show the slightest bit of complaint in front of Yu Siqing. Lan Qingyan was the same. Compared to Yu Manlan's pure anxiety, Lan Jingquang's mood was much more complicated. Ever since Lan Qingyan's accident, the Lan clan's situation had changed. This was within Lan Jingquang's expectations, so he had always sent people to pay close attention to the Lan clan's situation. In the past, Lan Qingyan's performance was not bad. With him controlling everything, their position was unshakable. But now Lan Qingyan had caused such a ruckus during the Battle of Zhuolu. Now her life and death were unknown. In addition, Lan Hongtai had already made it clear that he would never allow Lan Jingquang to sit on the patriarch's seat. So now, there were many people in the Lan family who had other ideas. Although this was within Lan Jingquang's expectations, he was currently in the Yu clan and could not leave. It was not easy to control these things. At this moment, Lan Jingquang was extremely disgusted with Wuji Palace and Bailey Hongzhuang. If it were not for these things, how could everything that should have been done smoothly become like this? When Yu Manlan knew that Yu Siqing was going to organize the Yu clan's recruitment of doctors, she could not help but feel anxious. Aunt Qingyan's situation is so serious. She still has not been cured. If you are going to organize the recruitment of doctors, what will happen to Qingyan? Yu Manlan's eyes were full of anxiety. Yu Siqing was already the last hope to save Lan Qingyan. During this period of time, no matter how anxious she did not dare to disturb Yu Siqing. But at this time, Yu Siqing actually wanted to organize other things? I will organize the recruitment of doctors for only a day. Other times, other people will go on my behalf. It won't waste much time. Yu Siqing said indifferently. But we don't know how long Qingyan can hold on. Aunt, can you not go? Yu Manlan could not hide the nervousness in her words. Lan Qingyan's current situation already made her very worried every day. If Yu Siqing still did not look after her, then what would happen to Lan Qingyan? Hearing Yu Manlan's words, Yu Siqing couldn't help but reveal a hint of impatience. Yu Manlan, you really don't think of yourself as a member of the Yu clan after getting married. Don't you know what kind of situation the Yu clan is in? For so many years, the Yu clan had never suffered such a huge blow. Now was the time when they needed people. Could it be that the Yu clan didn't need to recover their strength? Didn't they need to improve themselves? Do you only have the Lan family in your heart? Yu Siqing's eyes were filled with anger. It wasn't that Yu Manlan didn't know about the Yu clan's situation, but she still did such a rude thing. It was really infuriating. The head of the Yu clan, Yu Taotian, was about to look for Yu Siqing to discuss the matter of recruiting a doctor. He didn't expect to hear a roar coming from the house just as he walked to the door. Instantly his disgust towards Yu Manlan deepened. Yu Manlan's daughter's performance in the Yu clan was not outstanding to begin with. It was not a bad idea to get an ally for the Yu clan when she married. Chapter 2536. Yu Manlan was stunned by Yu Siqing's roar. She was just worried about Qingyan's condition. Now that she heard Yu Siqing's words, she had no room to refute. The Yu clan's current situation was indeed a serious loss. Recruiting new blood was an urgent matter. She did not intend to stop the Yu clan from recruiting doctors. She only hoped to delay the recruitment. After all, the most important thing now was Lan Qingyan's life. Aunt, I didn't mean it that way. Yu Manlan explained. However, Yu Siqing did not want to say anything more to Yu Manlan. She immediately asked her to leave. Get out. Hearing this, Yu Manlan's face turned red and white. She did not dare to say anything and walked out. Yu Manlan had just walked out of the house when she saw Yu Taotian's ashen face. She could not help but widen her eyes in panic. From Yu Taotian's expression, she could tell that he must have heard their conversation. She had offended her father again. Father! Yu Manlan opened her mouth to explain, but Yu Taotian ignored her. He walked into Yu Siqing's house, as if he did not see her. Seeing this, Yu Manlon stood outside the house in a daze. She recalled what had happened. Her head was still buzzing. She had no idea what had happened. After Bailey Hongzhuang finished all the preparations, she and Di Beichen packed their luggage and prepared to leave for Yutian City. Mistress will be leaving first. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Yu Linfeng and Nangong Wu in front of her. Her exquisite face was filled with a dazzling smile. Yu Linfeng nodded slightly. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who had matured a lot, his heart was filled with emotions. The current Bailey Hongzhuang was much more mature than when he first met her at the assessment competition. She could already take charge. Nangong Wu held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, her enchanting and bright face filled with concern. Hongzhuang, Beichen, you must be careful when you go out. We will wait for you to come back. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Ma'am, don't worry. We will definitely return safely with good news. I'll protect Hongzhuang, Di Beichen said. Hearing this, Nangong Wu and Yu Linfeng looked at each other, then smiled and sent Bailey Hongzhuang and Yu Linfeng off. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen set off together with the 3 demonic beasts. When the disciples of Limitless Palace saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen suddenly leaving, they were puzzled. They thought that the two of them were going out to train again. In a few days, the Yu clan will start recruiting doctors. Right now, many people have already rushed to Yutian City. Yutian City should be very lively right now. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. This time, they were not as nervous as before. In this kind of situation where there were so many people, fishing in troubled waters was never a difficult thing to do. Di Beichen nodded. We have to hurry up. The earlier we reach Yutian City, the earlier we can understand the situation. According to their thoughts, it would be best if they could make some friends after reaching Yutian City. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. The two of them walked forward, as if they were taking a stroll in the park. However, if one looked carefully, they would realize that although they seemed to be walking slowly, their speed was not slow at all. Chapter 2537. Yutian City. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen arrived at Yutian City, they felt that the atmosphere was completely different from the last time they were here. The entire Yutian City was much more lively than before. There was an endless stream of people, and even the number of stalls had increased. The last time they were here, Yutian City was filled with people from the Yu clan. This time there were many outsiders. When the others noticed Bailey Hongzhuang and Yutian City's appearance, they did not feel that there was anything wrong. There had been too many people entering Yutian City recently. Furthermore, the recruitment event that was held once every 3 years was a big event in Yutian City. At this moment, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had already changed their appearances. It seemed that no one would be able to link them to their previous appearances. The two of them appeared here as a couple. Di Beichen was not proficient in medicine, so he accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang this time. The two of them casually walked into a restaurant, only to find that all the rooms were filled. The people who came here were not only doctors who were participating in the recruitment event, but also people who came to watch the show. It was only at this time that Yutian City was extremely open. People from all walks of life could be seen here. Not only that, there were also some small powers who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to recruit some doctors. After all, every time there was a recruitment event, almost all the capable doctors would come. Firstly, they wanted to enter the Yu clan to learn more about medicine. Secondly, they wanted to seek better opportunities. The Yu clan's position in the medical world was deeply rooted. As long as the Yu clan was able to recruit a doctor, it was as if they were plated with a layer of gold. Therefore, no doctor wanted to give up this opportunity. However, if they wanted to be recruited by the Yu clan, they would need to be extremely outstanding. If they were just an ordinary doctor, they would not be able to enter the Yu clan. Therefore, many small powers thought that even if they could not recruit the most outstanding doctors, they would still be able to find the most outstanding ones. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but sigh in their hearts when they saw this. This was indeed a grand occasion for Yutian City. The two of them walked around Yutian City's restaurants, and finally found a place to stay. However, there was only one room left. Hearing this, Bewitching turned around and smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang. "We'll take this one." Bailey Hongzhuang naturally knew the meaning behind Bewitching's smile. She only glared at Bewitching and said. Bewitching's smile widened. It was really interesting to tease his wife every time. As the two of them stayed in the inn, they learned a lot of information. In fact, the entire Yutian city was talking about the recruitment conference, so almost all the news was shared. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching rushed over. Their speed was very fast, and they finally arrived 2 days before the recruitment conference. Now, everyone was talking about the recruitment conference in 2 days. Coincidentally, Bailey Hongzhuang and Yutian did not know anything about it, so they carefully listened to everyone's conversation. After learning about it, they finally understood that the recruitment conference was not just a conference. It was divided into the preliminary round and the final round. Only after passing the preliminary round would they be able to enter the most important final round. Chapter 2538. The finals were where the genius doctors would compete. Every time the finals of the recruitment tournament were held, it would attract a lot of attention. Many doctors relied on the finals of the recruitment tournament to show their talents and gain fame. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the discussions of the crowd. After seeing the excitement on the faces of the young doctors, she understood the importance of the recruitment tournament in the hearts of the doctors in the Shengxian continent. A carp leaping over the dragon's gate. This was the status of this recruitment event in everyone's mind. However, she did not come here with such a goal in mind. Have you heard that the Long clan's young clan master, Lan Qingyan, is currently undergoing treatment in the Yu clan? Even Great Master Yu Siqing was unable to cure the poison in her body. In the hall of the restaurant, a 25-year-old man spoke to the crowd, as if he knew an incredible secret. As soon as he said this, many people immediately agreed with him. I've also heard this news. It's said that Lan Qingyan has been tortured beyond recognition by this poison. Do you know who poisoned her? Who poisoned her? Everyone's faces were filled with curiosity. The Yu clan's matters had always been tight-lipped. Therefore, although everyone had heard some rumors, they did not know the exact situation. Looking at the curious faces of the crowd, the man's face was filled with pride. Limitless Palace's young palace master, Bailey Hongzhuang. Following the man's words, there was an uproar in the restaurant. I heard that Limitless Palace's young palace master, Bailey Hongzhuang, is the champion of the battle for deer. She is very powerful. I didn't expect her to poison Lan Qingyan. Is it because she can't defeat Lan Qingyan? The battle for deer, as the top competition in the Shengxian continent, had always been very concerned about it. However, they were not at the center of the incident, so they had only heard rumors. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard the crowd suddenly talking about her, she could not help but be surprised. Not only that, from the crowd's expression, it seemed that everyone had heard of her name. Are you surprised that you're suddenly so famous? After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Bewitching lowered his voice and laughed. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Previously, she was still in existence that most people did not know. She did not expect that in less than a month after the battle for deer, so many people already knew her name. Bewitching chuckled. Every time the results of the Battle of Zhuolu are announced to the public, you appeared out of nowhere and won 2 first places. Naturally, it will leave a deep impression. You haven't returned to Tiangang sect yet. The disciples of the sect were also surprised when they found out about your identity. Li Muzi and the others also came to talk to me about this. However, you didn't go back with me, so they could only ask me to congratulate you on their behalf. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood Bewitching's words. It was no wonder that every time there was a battle for the throne, everyone would sharpen their brains and try to squeeze in. Once they succeeded, they would truly become famous throughout the world. That's where you're wrong. I heard that Bailey Hongzhuang cut off Lan Qingyan's arm. She shouldn't be any weaker than Lan Qingyan. Moreover, Lan Qingyan's ranking is so low. It shouldn't be like this. If that's the case, Doesn't it mean that Bailey Hongzhuang's poison is more powerful than Master Yuxiqing's? Chapter 2539. In the eyes of the doctors and poison masters, Yuxiqing was the authority in the art of medicine and poison, an insurmountable mountain. However, there was a poison that even Yuxiqing couldn't detoxify. This was out of the ordinary. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, but no one could give an answer to this person's question. This was because this news was the truth. If Yuxiqing could detoxify it, then Lan Qingyan wouldn't have stayed in the Yu clan. The doctors and poison masters who worshipped Yuxiqing also found it hard to accept this news. After all, in their hearts, Yuxiqing was omnipotent in the art of medicine and poison. They didn't expect such a thing to happen now. They didn't know how to judge. After Bailey Hongzhuang noticed everyone's expression, she understood that her thoughts weren't wrong. This matter had indeed caused a certain blow to Yuxiqing's reputation. However, this was what she liked to see. Presumably, Yuxiqing would be extremely unhappy when she found out about this. After all, she was extremely proud in this aspect. The hall, which was originally bustling with noise and excitement, suddenly became silent. It was obvious that everyone was already used to the Yu clan's position as the number one in the medical field. Now that something like this had happened, they didn't know if the situation would change or not. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching finished their meal, they returned to the house and directly called for a waiter. "Dear guests, what can I do for you?" the waiter asked with a smile. Bewitching directly placed a bag of money on the table and said, "We're new here, so we don't know much about the process of this recruitment event. Why don't you explain this matter to us? And these are all yours." Hearing Bewitching's words, the waiter's face suddenly revealed a deep smile. He reached out and placed the bag of money in his hand. After feeling the weight of the bag, the waiter's attitude became even more cordial and enthusiastic. "Dear guests, you've asked the right person for this matter. I can't be more familiar with this situation." The servant immediately told Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching all the processes and things he knew. He himself was from Yutian City, so these things could be said to be very clear. Every year at this time, people would ask about this kind of thing, and it was also a good opportunity for the waiter to earn money. After this understanding, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang also completely understood. This method was simple and convenient, much more convenient than learning from others. Moreover, given the current situation, their actions would not arouse anyone's suspicions. According to the attendant, on the first day of the recruitment, they needed to go to the central plaza of Yutian City to receive their tokens. All the doctors and poison masters who wanted to participate would receive a special number. Doctors had their own number, while poison masters had their own number. After receiving the number plate, the doctor or poison master would wait for the preliminary round according to the number on the plate. Every time, there would be a lot of people in the preliminary round, so the preliminary round would take a lot of time. The earlier they participated in the preliminary round, the later they would have to wait. The final round would be held a few days later, but the specific time would depend on the end of the preliminary round. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.